I wore the blue rain jacket Walt used to tease me about. The one, he said, made me look like a docklight in a storm, and I kept my hands wrapped around the foam cup just to feel something warm. The boathouse smelled like coffee, old rope, and the last of the casseroles under tinfoil. People hugged me quick and polite, saying things they'd already said in the parking lot. I nodded, smiled where I could, and tried to breathe around the ache of his name. Kelsey floated in like she owned the tide. You've seen her online, I'm sure, the kind of smile that only settles when a lens is looking. She looked me over, head to toe, and landed on the keys at my hip. That set made a sound when I moved, a small metal clink, and it tugged her mouth into a pitying shape. We'll get you fixed up soon, Nora, she murmured, too bright for the room. There are ways to keep a classic vibe and still look, elevated, she said, classic like a thrift store, and elevated like I was a basement. A few guests laughed into their cups, the way people do when someone else gives them permission. I felt the heat climb my neck, not rage so much as a slow, old embarrassment, something from 7th grade that never learned my age. Evan, God bless him, shifted his weight and checked the exits. Kels, he said, meaning stop, but his voice took the timid way out and found the floor. She patted his arm, like a nurse congratulating a patient for standing. Rosa found my hand under the folding table. Her palm was calloused and certain. Breathe, she said without moving her mouth. I could always count on Rosa to see me before I even knew I needed seeing. She's been by my side longer than Kelsey's been alive. She knows the way shame can make a woman quiet herself until she disappears. Someone fiddled with the Bluetooth speaker, and a hymn stumbled into the background, a thin little thing that didn't know Walt at all. He was more of a Johnny Cash on a long drive kind of man. I swallowed the thought before it made me cry. Kelsey's voice rose again just enough for nearby ears, not enough to be called cruel if anyone repeated it later. We'll do a makeover, she said. You'll feel so much better. It's about branding. I glanced at the keys. They were ugly. I'll give you that brass worn smooth in places, the blue lanyard bleached by 100 suns and rains. But those keys had opened rooms that kept families dry when their plans fell apart. Those keys had collected tips that bought winter coats for girls named after constellations. Those keys were the reason Rosa's son finished his HVAC program, the reason Mrs. Barlow's annual crab boil still had a kitchen to burst in. You don't brag about keys, you carry them. It wasn't until someone at the snack table whispered, "Is she live?" that I noticed the phone leaned against a napkin holder. The red dot pulsed like a tiny heartbeat. I watched it for a breath too long, feeling the helplessness of old habits, the ones that tell you to smile and let it pass, because it's easier for everyone if you pretend it doesn't sting. Walt used to squeeze my shoulder when I did that and say, "Don't confuse peace with silence, Nor." I heard him then, clear as if his breath was still mint and coffee. It didn't make me brave all at once, but it steadied the cup in my hands. I could taste the paper. Rosa's thumb traced a tiny circle on the back of my hand. Patient, like we had all the time in the world to decide how I wanted to be from now on. Kelsey leaned in, lowering her voice into concern. "Content's already helping, Nora. People love a glow-up. We'll take those keys off you and get you something sleek." I smiled, because I have manners. The thing about grief is it sands you down until only what matters remains. Titles slip off. Money turns into receipts for milk and gasoline. What stays are promises. I promised myself that on the day we said goodbye to Walt, I wouldn't perform for anyone. So I squeezed Rosa's hand back, let the hymn play itself out, and let the keys at my hip sing their small metal song. They didn't know whose name was etched on that key. I went home the long way, past the marina where the gulls always sound argumentative and the river never stops explaining itself. The ADU out back looked like it always does, from the alley cedar siding weathered to the color of driftwood, porch light that flickers twice before it settles. Inside, it smelled like lemon oil and clean towels. That's my kind of church. On the wall above the little desk is a paper coastline I've been building for years, 8 tacked maps with pencil notes that only make sense to me. Cannon Beach, Seaside, Long Beach, Westport. Each harbor light marked with a dot and a date, the year we saved enough to buy a broken place, and the month we turned it into shelter again. I keep a tiny flag next to each name, not to show off but to remember which roofs leak in a south wind, which rooms run hot in August, which boilers sing when they're lonely. People imagine ownership is a glass office and a corner view. Mine is a mop sink and knowing exactly where the rain finds the weak seam. I hung my jacket, set the foam cup on a coaster Walt carved from a stump, and stared at the keys on my hip like they were misbehaving children. They didn't do anything wrong. They just told the truth too loudly in a room built for quiet grief. I unclipped them and set them on the desk. For a second the quiet felt mean, like a door closing on my own side. The evening had that gray Oregon light that makes you think the day forgot to finish. I opened the ledger, yes, an actual paper ledger, and slid out the week's cleaning roster, the deep clean notes, the off-season maintenance list we started the winter of the flood. Tuesday, room 14, carpet shampoo. Wednesday, swap curtains in 22. Thursday, check fire doors at the south stairwell, the latch sticks in cold snaps. This is how I keep panic from making a nest in me. Lists that end in boxes I can tick. My phone buzzed. Evan. I let it ring once longer than I needed to before I answered, like that pause could teach him something I hadn't managed to say out loud. "Hey, Mom," he said, too cheerful, like we were skipping the part where my eyes still burned. "Kels didn't mean anything by it. She's just trying to help your brand." "My brand," I repeated, looking at the map where I'd circled a boiler replacement that would eat half a quarter's profit. I didn't realize I had one. "It's a compliment," he said. "People loved the memorial. Good turnout, and Kels says she has ideas to elevate your look. We'll talk later, yeah?" He meant well. My son always means well. He's allergic to storms. He'll stand in the rain if it means he doesn't have to watch lightning. "Okay," I said, because fighting a man who thinks calm is the same as kind never goes where you want it to. When the call ended, the room felt smaller by the size of one unsaid sentence. I lifted the lid on the little box where I keep the things that don't match the version of me people prefer. Inside, first pay stubs from women who cleaned with me when Harbor Light was just a dream with mold. Walt's pocket knife, a Polaroid of the day we switched the neon back on. I laid the brass key on top, the way you'd tuck a sleeping child under a blanket. My hand stayed there longer than it needed to, as if I could warm metal into obedience. Grief is loud in the morning and tricky at night. It makes you rewind memories until the tape warps. I heard Walt again, the way he said my name like it was a place you could shelter. "Don't let them mistake your softness for surrender, Nor." It had always sounded like advice for someone braver than me. I didn't feel brave now. I felt like a woman whose daughter-in-law had turned goodbye into content and whose son thought new clothes would cure an old ache. I pulled the incident log from the drawer. It's just a composition book with a spine that creaks when you open it. Left page for facts, right page for feelings. Learned that from Rosa years ago on a January night when the pipes burst, and we had to choose between crying and calling the plumber. I wrote the date, the place, the sentence as precise as I could. Public comment about appearance during memorial, recorded on personal device, audience present. On the right, I let myself tell the truth one line at a time. Embarrassment, heat in the neck, old habit to smile and shrink. Witness, Rosa. Then, because I've learned a small boundary is still a boundary, I added. Follow-up. Capture link if posted, request deletion if face shown. All responses by email only. I set the pen down and listened. The house hummed the way old houses do, like they're keeping your secrets for you. I missed Walt so suddenly it felt like falling. I pressed my palm flat over the page to make sure the words didn't float away. If it's fine, why does it still shake my hands? I dated the bottom corner out of habit and, without thinking too hard, added one more line in small, stubborn letters. Memorial public comment captured. Then I closed the book and let the night be whatever it wanted to be. Knowing the page would be there in the morning to remind me that quiet does not have to mean invisible. By morning, the town had already chewed on it. Astoria moves fast when something stings, and someone's phone was hungry. At the bakery, the girl with the septum ring said, "Saw a clip from the memorial, sorry for your loss." And then, because we're all made of curiosity and accidents, "You look good in blue, by the way." She meant kind, not cruel, and still I felt that tiny slide inside where embarrassment lives. I told myself not to look, which of course is how you look sooner. It wasn't on Kelsey's main feed yet. Just fragments. A screen record in a mom's group, a snippet stitched with an eye roll emoji, a short with captions that swallowed my name but left my shape. Makeover time for Mill, someone wrote, as if I were a bathroom before grout. Face is blurred, sure, but the blue jacket and the keys might as well have been a birthmark. You can hide the face, small towns recognize the posture. I felt old habits reach for me, smile, minimize, say the nice thing so the moment passes. I put the phone face down and made tea. The strong kind Rosa brings when she thinks I'm about to pretend my feelings are laundry. Then I opened the composition book, the incident log, and reread last night's entry until my pulse learned how to count again. Left page, facts. Right page, truth. It steadied me the way a railing does when a wave hits. I wrote the new line with my neatest hand. Clip distributed in local groups. No consent requested. Comments mocking appearance. On the right, heat in ears, floaty feeling. Urge to apologize to everyone, even though I did nothing wrong. I added a small promise under that. All responses in writing. No DMs. I dated it, underlined twice, and felt the pen leave a groove only I would ever see. Don't sue, I told myself out loud, which is also how I talk to Walt when I need advice I already know. Preserve. I typed a quick email to Maya. Morning. I don't want to fight. Just a paper trail. If you have a template for requesting removal when likeness is identifiable by context, send it. Also, advise on policy language for filming on private property. She replied 8 minutes later with a short list that sounded like Maya: calm, surgical, very awake, screenshot link, note, date, time, request deletion if identifiable, keep tone courteous, CC yourself, store copies, not legal advice. Proud of you for writing first. I put the phone in the drawer and headed to the inn. If I stay alone with my head too long, it starts building whole towns out of one comment. Work cracks the windows. Kelsey was already there with a ring light and an idea. She had 2 of the younger clerks moving potted plants for vibe, and one of them, Mina, sweet kid with a heavy backpack of firsts, kept apologizing for breathing in frame. Maybe just tuck your shirt in, babe, Kelsey said, bright as candy. We're going for polished. The word babe slid across the counter like oil. I asked Mina for yesterday's shift notes. She handed them over the way you hand a teacher a test you're worried about. On top of the stack, a complaint slip from a guest with small handwriting. Was asked not to stand near the lobby during filming. Felt unwelcome. Will not return. My mouth went dry the way it does right before I tell the truth. Hey, I said to Kelsey, soft at first because softness is my first language. We film after hours or with consent forms on file. No guests on camera without release. Staff don't change uniforms for content. She didn't look up from her phone. It's just B-roll. Chill. I don't love that word. The one that turns women into ice when they're trying to be water. This isn't about chilling, I said. Still even. It's about rules we made to keep people safe and comfortable. You can shoot the lobby at 10 p.m. We'll put a sign out. I'll have forms ready. She smiled with all her teeth, which is how some people say no. My followers expect spontaneity. It is what I did. Then be spontaneous about kindness, I said, and I surprised myself by not apologizing for the sentence after. I asked Mina to take her break. I asked the other clerk to bring me the binder with blank releases. I asked my hands to stop shaking, and they listened. An older woman I didn't know came in wearing an honest raincoat and shoes that had done their miles. Oh, Kelsey said, too quick. We're not really open for walk-ins during a shoot. There's a whole process for. We're open, I said. The woman's eyes were glassy in that way grief makes everything reflect. Welcome, I told her, and meant it. I comped a night the way I always do when life knocks late and cold. No cameras right now, I added, looking at Kelsey, not unkind. Kelsey made a show of stepping aside. Later, she'd call it a misunderstanding. Online, misunderstandings are currency. When the desk cleared, I went to the back office and opened the small safe. The brass key sat where I'd left it last night, on top of the first pay stubs and the Polaroid of our neon breath coming back to life. I clipped it to the blue lanyard and felt the weight land exactly where it belonged. "No more drawers," I told it. "You and me, we tell the truth." Back at the counter, I took pictures of the posted filming policy, the complaint slip, and the clock. I emailed them to myself with a subject line that would make sense later. Filming, consent lobby, 10:16 a.m. I printed the policy again and handed a copy to Mina. "If anyone asks you to move a plant, you tell them the fiddle leaf fig works for me exactly where it is," I said. She laughed like a hiccup and stood taller by half an inch. By lunch, the clip had doubled itself like rabbits do. I didn't chase it. I wrote, filed, breathed. When you keep records, the world stops being a fog and starts being a map. That afternoon, I texted Rosa. "Dinner? Need to practice saying small words like they're enough." She sent back a crab emoji and a heart. On the way out, I paused by the lobby door and listened to the keys settle against my hip. It sounded like someone tapping a glass before a toast, just a tiny note, but clear enough to steady a room if you let it. If I'm keeping records, I'd better act like I mean it. By late afternoon, Evan called with that careful voice he uses when he isn't sure if the floor is solid. "Hey, Mom. Quick thing. Totally optional." Nothing truly optional starts like that. He cleared his throat. Kels has a chance to host a coastal retreat influencers, small brand partners, good press for Harbor Light. She just needs a signature so the rooms can be blocked comp. It's a family discount situation, well, more like a partnership, but... He ran out of words the way a tide runs out of shore. There was a stillness in me that didn't feel like peace. "So you're asking me to sign for a thing I haven't seen," I said. "To give away rooms she's already promised strangers because a camera wants them." "Not give away," he said too fast. "Invest. We get exposure. It'll make you look great. And there's a sponsor almost locked, so it's basically free." "Almost is a word that should never sit next to money," I said. "You know that, Ev." He took the soft route. "Mom, it's just one signature." "Just" is another word that doesn't belong anywhere near ink. I looked at the incident log on the desk and the map on the wall and felt the old habit in me say, "Yes now, fix it later, try to stand up." I told it to sit down. "Here's what I can do," I said. "Not legal advice, just my way. 3C. Calm, collect, confirm. First, we all take a breath and don't sign anything today. Second, we collect the documents, proposals, sponsor term sheets, cancellation policies, liability, release forms for filming, exactly who pays housekeeping overtime. Third, we confirm in writing who's asking, what the rooms are worth, what we get in return besides exposure, who carries the insurance. If it's solid, email it to legal at. If it's kindness, we'll find a way, but nothing handshakes or napkins." He exhaled like someone had just turned off the music at a party he wanted to keep dancing at. "That's a lot." "It's basic," I said, gentle but not smaller. "Exposure doesn't patch roofs. Paper does." In the background, Kelsey chimed in, bright as a shopping mall. I hadn't realized the call was on speaker. "Nora, we don't need to get all corporate. It's literally one event. I can send an Instagram deck. I have a template I use with boutiques. You can just sign the last page and I'll fill the rest." "Saves time." "Never sign the last page," I said. "And please take me off speaker." There was rustling, then Evan's sheepish, "Sorry." Kelsey didn't lower her volume. Some people think loud and right are twins. "We're trying to help your brand," she said. "Can you print the deck, or should I drop one at the inn? Do you even have a printer?" I looked at the brass key on its blue lanyard, how it caught light like a private wink. "I'll manage," I said. "Send PDFs to the legal address. No DMs. All timelines in writing." Silence. Then the little scoff that likes to sit at the end of Kelsey's sentences. "Okay, boss." After we hung up, I stood very still, as if movement might make me agree to something I didn't understand. Then I took the brass key and walked the long hallway behind the laundry, past the shelves of folded towels and the cart that squeaks when it's nervous. There's a plain door back there with paint rubbed off where hands have learned it by heart. The key fit the way it always has, with that friendly click a home makes when you're the one at the threshold. Inside is the office nobody pictures when they say Mom and Pop. The copier hums like a content animal. The laminate floor is unpretty and easy to clean. On the shelf, binders labeled in my cramped hand, vendors, insurance, events filming. I turned on the overhead light that makes everything honest. I printed a clean sheet and wrote a short policy in sentences even grief couldn't confuse. No signatures at memorials, weddings, crises, or after 8 p.m. All proposals via email, PDF only. No exposure in lieu of payment. Filming requires releases. Guests first, always. If I wouldn't read it out loud to Rosa, I don't sign it. Then I open the email and watch the deck arrive. Bright colors, impressive numbers, the kind of graphs that look like candy canes. No contract. No terms. Just a slide that said mutual benefit with a photo of a girl in a hat pretending wind doesn't touch her. I forwarded it to Maya with a subject line we'd joked about for years. Promise, meet paper. Calm, I whispered, like a password. Collect. I saved the file to the events filming folder. Confirm, I typed. Please send proposed contract, insurance, room block details, cleaning schedule, cancellation. We can review by end of week. All filming on property requires releases, no exceptions. When I stepped back into the hallway, the keys tapped my hip and sounded exactly like agreement. Kelsey thinks I need a printer. The truth is quieter and less photogenic. I own the lease to 3. By noon, the rain came sideways, the kind that turns umbrellas into kites and makes even the river look like it's hurrying somewhere. I was behind the desk, checking in a roofer who smelled like cedar and coffee when the door opened, and an older woman stepped in, blinking through the wet. Her raincoat dripped politely onto the mat. She looked around the lobby like she was counting what she could carry and still keep her dignity. Kelsey clocked her first. "Oh," she said, bright and thin. "We're in the middle of a content block. Could you wait outside for a sec? Wet shoes on tile are not the look." She smiled toward the ring light, as if the light could vote. The woman folded her hands in front of her, the way people do when they've been told to take up less space. "I only need one night," she said. "My sister's in the hospital. I can be quiet." "You're fine," I told her, stepping past Kelsey's sentence. "Welcome in. We'll get you a room away from the stairs. Warm towels in 5. I handed her the small card we keep for tough days. "If you need anything at all, ask twice." Her mouth trembled into something like a thank you, and I felt the day click into place. Kelsey gave me a side look that wanted to be a lesson. "We talked about brand experience, Nora. Random wet walk-ins during shoots are confusing. Guests aren't random," I said. "They're the point." She didn't answer, just pivoted to Mina and started rearranging plants again, narrating to a phone that had already chosen a side. The roofer behind me coughed into his fist, embarrassed for all of us. I comped the woman a night without fuss, slid her a tea bag from the jar Rosa keeps for emergencies, and called housekeeping for a quick towel run. "There's soup at the diner next door," I said, "and if they're stingy with crackers, tell them I said don't be." She laughed, a small bright sound that made the lobby feel less staged. Evan arrived with the shape of apology in his shoulders. "Hey." He kissed my cheek and kept his voice low. "Kel says she didn't mean it. She's under pressure to get deliverables in before the algorithm changes again. Maybe just, don't make a thing of this?" Everyone. I looked at my son and saw the boy who used to build blanket forts so he wouldn't have to pick a bedtime. "Ev," I said, "I'm not making a thing. I'm making a policy. Policies keep people from crying in lobbies." He opened his mouth, then closed it again when the older woman walked back through to ask how to work the heater. "Turn the dial to the little flame," I told her, "and it'll behave." She nodded and patted my wrist, the way my mother used to, and I had to blink fast. When the lobby settled, I went into the back and opened the drawer where we keep extra name tags. My fingers found the one I rarely wear, because quiet comes easier when people assume you can't make the final call. I unclipped the housekeeping badge and slid on the one etched deeper. Nora Hale, managing owner. The metal felt cool against the skin above my heart. It was lighter than I remembered and heavier in all the right ways. Back at the desk, I set the brass key on the counter. Not tossed, but placed, the way you lay a seal on warm wax. The lamplight caught the scratches, and for a second, I saw every door it had opened. Midnights, honeymoons, hard winters, clean starts. Kelsey didn't notice the swap. She was busy coaching the ficus into facing its better side. Evan noticed and didn't know what to do with the information, which is its own kind of noticing. "Mom," he said carefully, "you don't have to." "I know," I said. "And today I want to." A beat passed where all I heard was the heater tick and the printer waking up in the back. I pulled the filming policy from the binder and taped a fresh copy near the bell. "We post this where people can see it," I said to no one in particular, which is sometimes the only way rules get born. No filming guests without release. No rearranging staff for content. After hours by appointment. Guests first. Kelsey finally looked up, eyes snagging on the tag, then flicking away like she'd stared at the sun. "Cute," she said, as if the word owner were an accessory. "We'll blur the lady. It's not that deep." Hezwati was. "It is that deep to her," I said. "That's how depth works." For a moment we stood in the odd quiet that happens when a boundary finds its legs. I wasn't angry. If anything, I felt steadied, like the floor had remembered it was a floor. The woman in the raincoat would sleep warm tonight. The roofer would get his receipt and an early breakfast, and Mina would not be told to tuck a shirt that met code. I could play invisible, the way I've always done housekeeper with a key and a good memory for stain codes. Or I could run my name and mean it. I touched the tag once, the way you check your pulse after a scare, and let the keys at my hip answer for me with their small, certain song. Astoria has a way of pretending nothing happens and knowing everything anyway. By the next morning, Kelsey had a save-the-date post up for her coastal retreat with glossy words about empowerment and partner properties. She'd tagged Harborlight like an obedient dog on a leash, which would have been flattering if the leash belonged to me. At 10, my phone buzzed with a number I know the way I know my own grocery list. "John Park," he said, warm as the credit union lobby on a rainy day. "Got a second, Nora?" "For you. Always." He cleared his throat in that careful banker way. "I've got a pre-approval packet here referencing Harborlight room blocks and a sponsorship hold. Looks odd." Papers shuffled. "It includes a family authorization letter with your name. The signature is, well, it's yours, but it's also very not yours." "Font?" I asked. "Scripted. Perfect loops. On our end, we'd call it decorative. On a contract, we'd call it problematic." I stared at the map on my wall like it could tell me who decided my name was a costume. Who submitted? Applications under a small agency out of Portland. Kelsey's listed as the talent contact. Evan's name appears as family liaison. He let the word settle. No funds moved. I pulled it because something in my bones didn't like it. "Thank you," I said, and meant it in the way you mean a rope thrown from a dock. He waited. "I'll handle it." When we hung up, I sat very still and listened to the building breathe. This is the part where old me would go soft, decide it was a misunderstanding that would untangle itself if I just stayed sweet enough. New me took out a folder and wrote on the tab in block letters, "Retreat paper." The brass key went on top as a weight, a metal comma between me and the impulse to apologize for existing. I forwarded John's email to Maya and typed what Rosa calls my mom voice into words. Need a cease and confirm. No threats, no theater. Facts only. Items: forged-looking signature, unauthorized use of brand, room blocks promised without contract, filming implied without releases. Require written confirmation that all related applications are withdrawn, copies of everything submitted in my name, acknowledgement that any future proposals must originate from legal ad preservation request for all footage and communications. She responded like she always does, with sentences built to stand through weather. While she drafted, Kelsey posted a story set to upbeat pop about women not gatekeeping power. A poll asked, "Is it right for family to block your bag?" The results stacked in her favor because strangers will always pick the prettiest sentence. DMs filled with the kind of advice people give when they don't have to sweep up after it. "Go off, sis. Old people hate change." "She's jealous." I turned the volume off. Jealousy is loud. Stewardship whispers. Evan called. "Mom, you're being intense. Kels said you refused to help. The sponsor is legit." The agency said a family letter speeds things up. I didn't refuse, I said. I asked for paper, and nothing speeds up a thing worth doing like doing it right. He sighed into the receiver like a tired bellows. You make everything so heavy. Liv slept under these roofs, I said. Heaviness comes with the lease. Can't you just let Kels handle the publicity piece? She understands that world. His whined. The publicity piece doesn't understand consent forms, room wear and tear, or who unclogs the drains after people leave. That's my world. I kept my voice even. There's also a letter with my name signed in a font, Evan. Fonts don't speak for me. He went quiet so fast I knew he hadn't expected paper to have teeth. She said her agency did a draft for you to approve later. No one who works with me writes my yes before I do. We ended kinder than that sounds, because I won't let a sentence live as the last thing between us if I can help it. Then I opened the email from Maya. It was short, which is how you know it's strong. I read it out loud, alone in the office. Cease and confirm. Harbor Light brand name and owner's signature may not be used without express written consent. Withdraw all pending applications that reference Harbor Light or Nora Hale. Provide copies of any submitted materials within 24 hours. All filming proposals to legal at Harbor Light. Preservation request. Retain all footage, drafts, emails, texts, and social posts related to memorial content, lobby filming, and retreat planning. Not legal advice to third parties. I added a sentence that sounded like me. Guests first. Always. Then I sent it to the agency address on the packet. John flagged to Kelsey's business email, to Evan's inbox with a neutral subject line, clarifying paperwork, no caps, no flames. While I waited, I pulled the events filming binder and printed the policy again. I tucked a copy under the desk bell and slid another into Mina's station. When she came on, I showed her where to find the form we use when anyone points a camera in a direction that could land on a face. If you're not sure, I told her, the answer is no until someone older than you says yes in writing. She smiled, shy proud. I like that. I like it too, I realized. I like having a sentence I can hand people when the ocean inside them is louder than their common sense. By late afternoon, the agency wrote back with a neat little statement about misunderstanding and placeholder signatures. They withdrew the application and asked for a quick chat to align vibes. I replied with a one-liner. Email works. Kelsey posted another story about family drama with a grainy photo of a key that might have been mine. Comments bloomed like mold. I put the brass key into the legal folder like a bookmark, shut the drawer, and stood up to stretch. If she wants the lights, we'll bring the receipts. A minute later, my inbox chimed. Preservation notice. All footage and comms. That night, the rain turned the parking lot into a shallow mirror, and the laundry room hummed like a tired choir. I like it there after closing the heat, the steady spin, the way the lint traps catch what people shed and keep it from choking the works. I folded towels because my hands needed a job, while my head emptied itself onto the concrete floor and tried to evaporate. Rosa came in without knocking, the way family does. She set a paper sack on the folding table. Clam chowder, she said. Real clams, not the kind that squeak. She waited until I took a spoon before she talked again. You're doing that thing. What thing? Is Welekshina Varia, the thing where you swallow whole storms and call it a sip of water. I opened my mouth to argue and heard it as if it belonged to some other woman, the automatic gentleness, the joke, the change of subject waiting on deck. I set the spoon down. The washer thumped once like it agreed with Rosa. I keep thinking if I stay soft, nobody breaks, I said. But today it felt like softness doesn't cushion anything. It just absorbs it, and then you end up carrying around a wet blanket and calling it grace. Rosa leaned a hip against the table and crossed her arms. Your softness saves people every day. It got Mrs. Finch a room when her card failed. It got Mina a shift that didn't overlap her final. But it isn't the same as silence. They aren't twins. Quote. I looked at the brass key where I'd laid it on the metal table. It had taken the shape of my palm over the years. I swear it had. My father's voice still lives in me, I said, and it surprised me by coming out polite instead of bitter. Not the words, those were loud and stupid. The echo. I learned early that quiet kept me safe. Quiet meant less flying glass. Somewhere along the way I started believing quiet meant I was good. Rosa's mouth softened. Quiet is a tool, she said. Not a personality. Not a destiny. And what if I open my mouth and become him? You won't, she said. You couldn't find his meanness with a compass and a paid guide. You know the difference between a boundary and a shove. Put that knowing in writing and let it carry some of the weight. I stared at the key until it blurred. There are some promises you make to yourself so many times they wear thin like a favorite shirt. I needed a new one with stronger thread. I pulled the composition book closer, flipped it to a clean page, and wrote across the top like I was carving a sign to hang over a door. Boundary card. Then I wrote the parts out loud so my mouth could hear them. Daylight. No side deals, no whispers, no signatures in the shadows. If it can't stand in daylight, it doesn't stand under my roof. Email. Feelings change shape when they're scared. Paper holds still. Everything important lives where it can be found again. No sign under pressure. Not at memorials. Not after 8 p.m. Not when my hands shake. If a signature needs urgency to make sense, it doesn't. Respect or remove access. Cameras, discounts, backstage doors. Access is trust, not entitlement. You harm guests, you lose your keys. I read it twice, then a third time until the rhythm settled into my bones. Rosa watched me with that quiet pride she keeps like a coin in her pocket. There's your spine, she said. I signed my name below the list, the way you sign a lease with yourself. Nora Hale, owner. The letters came out steady, not pretty. Pretty has never kept a boiler from failing. Steady has. I slid the brass key onto the page so the metal sat over the word respect. It made the smallest sound, a bright tap that reminded me of wedding rings on glass, and the first time Walt and I turned the neon vacancy back on after a month of painting and patching like we were building a raft. I missed him so hard the room wavered. He would have teased me for needing ink to be brave, then kissed my forehead and told me to make 3 copies. Rosa nudged the paper sack. Eat the chowder while it's still itself, she said. Then softer. Tomorrow, you can carry this into the light without becoming lightning. I laughed, a little broken, which is still a laugh. Do you ever worry it won't matter? That I'll say the right sentences and people will still choose the wrong door? Every day, she said. Then I remember doors aren't the point. Being the person who holds them open or closed for the right reasons is. We finished the soup with our backs to the warm machines. I tore the paper bag into strips and wrote the 4 lines again on each piece, 1 small card per pocket or drawer. I gave one to Rosa because she knows how to use tools. I kept one for the front desk and one for my wallet and one for the mirror where grief catches me, brushing my teeth and tries to make me smaller. Before we turned out the lights, I taped the first boundary card to the inside of the office cabinet, right above the binder spines I've labeled 100 times. It looked humble there, which suited it. I clipped the key back on its lanyard and let it settle against my hip like a period at the end of a necessary sentence. On the walk home, the rain had softened into mist that touched everything without scaring it. I breathed it in, and it didn't feel like drowning. Tomorrow, I'll speak where I used to swallow. By morning, I'd slept like a person who finally found a sentence she could lean on. The rain took a breather. The dock smelled like rope and metal and the inside of a shell. I brewed coffee strong enough to stand a spoon and sent 3 emails before it cooled. 1 to staff, 1 to management, 1 to family. Same subject line. No drama. Today. Housekeeping, policy, clarity. I kept the body short. I've learned people listen better when you don't make them swim. At 10, we gathered in the Harbor Light conference room that used to be a storage closet laminate table, mismatched chairs, the kind of fluorescent light that makes truth unflattering and therefore honest. Rosa sat to my left with a legal pad she never once looked at. Mina clutched a pen like it was an oar. Diane from scheduling, Victor from maintenance, and Dell the night clerk came in with damp cuffs and the politeness working people bring to rooms where decisions might happen to them. Evan slid in late, cheeks wind-flushed, and took a seat at the far end like he was auditing the class. Kelsey didn't come. She sent a calendar decline with a sparkle emoji. I started with thank yous because gratitude clears air. Then I put the boundary card on the table and let silence introduce it. People read faster when they feel you trust their eyes. Daylight. Email. No sign under pressure. Respect or remove access. The 4 lines looked small on paper, but they filled the room like a backbone. We're going to look at a few things, I said. And then we're going to talk about how we treat guests, staff, and each other when cameras want something more than consent does. I plugged in the laptop and opened precisely what mattered. No montage, no music. We watched the memorial clip long enough to know what it was. We watched the lobby complaint become handwriting on a form. We looked at the Save the Date retreat post, and then the email from John about the pre-approval with a signature that belonged to a prettier version of my name. I put up the screenshot of the preservation notice with the timestamp, like a stamp on a passport. You passed through here, don't pretend you didn't. Evan cleared his throat. Kels said the signature thing was a placeholder, her agency. Placeholders aren't allowed to impersonate owners, I said, not unkind. And agencies don't get to move furniture in the lobby without asking the people whose backs lift it. He stared at his hands. She thought you were being controlling. I'm being custodial, I said. This is a place where people come to put their heads down without fear of being content. If that's control, I'll own it. That was to disdain. And did not close no one. Is the stance time stames and wait in the manstead. I could feel the room waiting for me to tip anger. A speech. Something sharp. Instead, I did the least exciting thing and read policy out loud. Filming requires consent forms on file. Guest areas are not sets. Discounts are not leverage. Influencer retreats are events, and events require contracts that hold water in a storm. No signatures in grief, emergencies, or after 8 p.m. If a thing cannot stand the sun, it does not stand in our hallways. Mina raised a small hand. What do I do if someone says I'm ruining their shot? You say, I'm keeping a promise, I told her, and you point to the sign I'm going to post next to your station, so you don't have to be the sign. He just it. Victor asked about who cleans up after late-night shoots. Rosa tapped her pen once, and I nodded. If there's no overtime in writing, there's no after-hours anything. Nobody loves a free mess. Dell, who's seen more midnight confessions at a front desk than most priests, said, You want me to stop the live streams? I want you to stop the live streams, I said. And I want you to know that if anyone gives you trouble for that, they're arguing with me, not you. That's when Evan finally looked up. Mom, Kelsey will say you're humiliating her in front of everyone. I'm not humiliating anyone, I said. I'm drawing a circle around the thing I'm responsible for and writing the rules on the edge so people don't have to guess. If I wanted to humiliate, I'd be louder. No one laughed. Thank God. I'm tired of jokes rescuing people from the weight of what they've done. I slid a folder to the middle of the table. Inside were copies of the complaint slip, the policy, and the short letter Maya drafted for staff to carry if they needed to explain the no filming rule without getting tangled in someone else's performance. We all signed the back page, not a contract, just a "we heard you." In families and inns, that's the paper that keeps the floor from sagging. Questions? I asked. Rosa said, You missed one line from your card. I smiled. Guests first. Always. I wrote it on the whiteboard just so the room could watch the words land. Then I looked at my son. Evan, I'm meeting Kelsey at the marina at noon. Deputy Sloan will be there in case the conversation drifts. You're welcome to come if you plan to listen more than you defend. He swallowed. She's going to say you're making a scene. I'm making an appointment, I said. There's a difference. I picked up the brass key and set it gently in the center of the folder. The metal tapped the paper in a bright, certain way that made the room feel steady. Sometimes the simplest methods are the most ceremonial. A key on a table, a policy on a wall, a mother deciding not to disappear from her own life. We wrapped in 15 minutes, not because we were done, but because we were clear. People went back to the work that keeps a place alive: vacuum lines, corner dust, the art of fresh coffee. Evan stayed back long enough to say, I'll be there, which could have meant the marina or just today. I took it as both. On my way out, I posted the new filming notice where eyes could find it without argument and tucked a copy of the boundary card under the bell. When the door swung shut, the keys at my hip chimed their small metal amen. Bring your cameras if you want. At noon, we'll bring our conscience. I got there early because I always do. The marina smelled like wet rope and diesel, and the gulls were arguing like old men who'd known each other too long. Deputy Sloan waited by the picnic table with his thermos, hat low, posture easy. In that way people get when they know they can keep a lid on things if they have to. He nodded at me like we were both just running errands. I set my tote down and felt the brass key tap my hip twice, the way it does when it wants me to remember who's holding the door. Kelsey arrived 5 minutes late, walking fast, talking into her phone, sunglasses big enough to call themselves a plan. Evan trailed behind her, looking like someone had promised him this would be quick and painless. "So," Kelsey said, breathless bright, "I'm here, what's the emergency? We're losing daylight." "No emergency," I said, "just clarity." Sloan lifted a hand. "Before we begin, quick note, no live streaming. Record if you want for your own reference, but no posting from here. Keeps everyone honest." He said it like a weather report. Kelsey made a face but tucked her phone away. The marina went quiet in that way places do, when they're waiting to see who'll blink first. I opened the tote and laid it all out like a modest yard sale. Printed emails, a copy of the filming policy, the complaint slip with the tidy handwriting, John's note about the pre-approval packet and the placeholder signature that didn't belong to anyone I know. A screenshot of the preservation notice with its firm little timestamp. I don't know why paper steadies me the way it does, but it does. It makes storms measurable. Kelsey laughed once, that sharp little sound that suggests the joke is on the person who brought the receipts. "This is a lot," she said, hand flapping at the stack. "I told you, misunderstanding. My agency uses templates. The signature was just a draft so we could move. I would have gotten your approval before anything real." "Approvals don't happen after the fact," I said. "And drafts don't go to banks with my name on them." Evan slid a glance at Sloan, then back to me. "Mom, can we not do this like a tribunal? It makes her look like someone who made promises with rooms she doesn't own?" I asked. I kept my voice level, same tone I use when a guest asks where the towels are and what time the ocean stops. "We're not here to embarrass anyone. We're here to put the rules where everyone can see them so they don't get tripped over again." Kelsey folded her arms. "You're mad because I used Harbor Light in a post. Partner properties. It's free marketing. The retreat would have sold out in a day." "Guests first," I said. "A retreat is an event. Events need contracts that say who cleans what and who pays when. You filmed in the lobby without releases. You told a grieving woman in a raincoat to wait outside because her shoes didn't fit your vibe. And you used my name, my actual name, on a letter to a bank." I tapped the page with one finger. "None of that is marketing. It's erasing the difference between wanting something and owning it." Sloan uncapped his pen and didn't write anything. He has a gift for being the quietest person with a badge in the room. Kelsey's jaw worked. "You don't get how this world functions. Things move fast. If you don't grab the moment, then it wasn't meant to be grabbed," I said. "I know how my world functions. People sleep under my roofs and expect not to be content. Employees clock out and expect not to be rearranged because a tripod got hungry. We fix boilers and replace carpet and put soup in hands that need it. None of that moves faster because a poll said it should." Evan scrubbed a hand over his face. "Okay," he said to Kelsey, low. "Let's just listen." I took a breath, the kind that makes sentences land where you mean them. "Kelsey, effective immediately. Any discount codes, backstage access, or filming privileges you've used or shared under the umbrella of family are revoked. If you want to work with Harbor Light in the future, you email legal like everyone else. If you want rooms, you pay like everyone else, or you bring a contract that keeps my housekeepers whole." She stared at me, sunglasses turning me into two small women. "You're punishing me because I cared about your brand." "I'm setting a boundary because I care about my people," I said. "This is not punishment, it's stewardship." I slid one more page across the table, Maya's letter asking for withdrawal of every application, copies of anything with my name, acknowledgement of the policy going forward. "You don't have to sign," I said. "You just have to comply." Sloan cleared his throat. "Not unkind. I'm here to make sure folks feel safe while they say what they need to say. Far as I can tell, what's being asked is reasonable." Kelsey's face went through a handful of colors before it settled on the one people wear when they're trying not to cry on camera. "You're killing the retreat. People were excited. People can be excited about lots of things. Excitement doesn't patch a roof or pay overtime. She glanced at Evan, waiting for him to step in. He didn't. It cost him something. I could see it land behind his eyes. He nodded once, tiny but real. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the tote, and stood. There's also a temporary filming ban on Harborlight property, I added, until we finish training and make consent forms muscle memory. That includes your stories. No exceptions. Kelsey swallowed. You can't stop me from filming in public. I can stop you from filming my guests, I said, and I can revoke any access I used to give you because you were family. For a long minute, no one said anything. A fishing boat groaned against its ropes. The keys at my hip clicked once like punctuation. I took the brass key off the lanyard and walked to the service gate at the back of the dock. It's the one that leads to the maintenance corridor, the shortcut the family has always used. I turned the lock, heard the old mechanism find itself, and slipped the key back on the ring. Access revoked. Not love, not history, just access. Kelsey pushed her sunglasses up into her hair. Her eyes were wet and mean in the way fear gets when it thinks it's alone. You think this makes you noble, she said. All it makes you is small town. I had sponsors. Then they'll understand contracts, I said. And if they don't, they'll understand no. Sloan tipped his hat, which is his way of announcing that a scene has ended without needing an applause sign. Evan put his hands in his pockets and looked at the water like it might hand him an answer. We walked away without a winner because there wasn't supposed to be one. The point wasn't winning. It was not disappearing. At the corner by the bait shop, my phone buzzed with a new email the agency again, this time with an invoice attached for management and viral strategy. I opened it on the sidewalk because sometimes you need to know where the thread starts. There, in the header, sat a name I didn't recognize. Not Kelsey, not the intern who answers her DMs. Someone else who'd been writing her sentences for her. The money trail doesn't end with Kelsey. The invoice opened like a curtain. At the top, North and Vine Media, a tidy Portland agency with a polite logo and a talent for writing sentences that sound like yours until you try them on. Line items marched down the page. Viral framework, conflict escalation beats, family leverage strategy, and there it was in black and white, humiliation hook, memorial friendly. Whoever typed that had never cleaned up after. Grief. I forwarded it to Maya and John with 2 words. Found them. Then I called Evan. He picked up on the first ring like he'd been waiting to be braver than he felt. I need to ask you something, I said. He beat me to it. They offered me a percentage, he blurted. For making it smooth. For not making a fuss about room blocks. Just until the sponsor paid. I told myself it wasn't a big deal. I didn't want another fight. I'm sorry. The sentence landed with a dull thud where old disappointments go. I sat on the curb by the bait shop and watched a boy untangle fishing line with more patience than most adults bring to apologies. Thank you for saying it, I told him. The truth takes hands. I picked silence for money, he said, voice thin. I hate who that makes me. We all hate who we are in the middle of changing, I said. What you do next decides if the hate turns useful. He came to the office that afternoon, eyes rimmed red from deciding. I had the North and Vine email open on the screen, the filming policy taped where a person couldn't avoid it by blinking. Evan looked at the invoice once, then again as if the words might soften on second read. They wrote it like a playbook, he said. Even the memorial. They did, I said, and we still own what we chose inside their script. He nodded, swallowed. What do you need from me? A list is easier than a speech. No more side paths, I said. No more quiet for percentages. If you want to stay close to this place, you start on the floor. 6 months. Entry pay. You'll learn what a wet lobby really feels like and how much work lives behind one cute post. He didn't argue. He put his hand on the counter and said, When do I start? Monday, I said, and let myself be proud of the boy who finally picked a door. Kelsey emailed once 3 paragraphs of spin with an apology tucked in like a receipt. She said the agency had encouraged raw family moments because audiences respond to authenticity. She said she never would have used my likeness without permission. She had. She said the retreat could still happen if we'd be less formal. I sent back one line. We're not less formal with people who sleep under our roofs. I copied the agent, attached the invoice, and closed the thread forever. Access revoked stays revoked. That's what makes it a boundary and not a mood. Maya drafted a short notice to North and Vine, requesting deletion of all strategy materials that reference me or Harbor Light, withdrawal of any applications, and confirmation that no further content about our property would be produced or posted without written consent. Not legal advice, the footer sang, which always makes me smile. We filed their compliance next to the earlier withdrawal, paper stacking neatly like clean towels. By the weekend, the comments under Kelsey's retreat posts thinned. Outrage is a poor long-term tenant. It never pays on time. She took a part-time job at a department store and, a month later, left me a voice message that was small and human. She said she was sorry for the memorial, sorry for the lobby, sorry for using my name as a tool. She didn't ask for her discount back. I stood at the window and listened to the waves applauding the rocks and decided forgiveness could be a private thing I kept for myself. I didn't call her, not out of spite, out of care for something I was finally learning to carry without dropping. We hung the Harbor Light Care Code in the lobby on a coastal blue board Rosa painted in her backyard. Elegance equals respect. Underneath, 4 lines from my card. In letters Mina traced brave and careful. Daylight, email. No sign under pressure. Guests first. We trained on releases until everyone could find them with their eyes closed. Dell stopped 2 live streams with a gentle hand and a firmer voice. Victor added a line to the maintenance checklist. Check signage by bell, replace if curled. The small things held. On Monday, Evan showed up in the floor uniform and learned how to say welcome without performing it. He carried luggage like it contained history. He cleaned a spill without waiting to be asked. In the afternoon, he checked a woman in with a voice so respectful I had to step into the hallway and cry the kind of quiet cry that doesn't collapse you, just rinses the sharp edges. As for me, I put the brass key on a small hook by the framed photo of Walt and me standing under the first neon we ever resuscitated. I like hearing it when I take my coat off, 2 notes that sound like a promise renewed. I don't carry it all day now. I don't need to. Everyone who should have a key has one. Everyone who shouldn't doesn't. Simple doesn't mean easy. It means true. People still come wet from weather and life. We give them rooms and privacy. Sometimes they tell me about someone they love, and sometimes they just want extra blankets. When I answer the phone these days, I can hear my own voice without flinching. It is not my father's. It is not the voice of a woman who disappears for peace. It is the voice of a caretaker who understands that guarding kindness sometimes looks like saying no to a camera and yes to a mop. Justice didn't roll in like a drumline. It arrived the way good weather does on the coast, steadily, with small proofs. A contract with no font signatures. A lobby where people aren't content unless they want to be. A son choosing work over a shortcut. A code on a wall that means what it says. In the quiet after check-in, the lobby feels like a held breath that finally lets itself go. I stand beneath the care code and touch the edge of the sign like it's a doorframe you kiss for luck. Then I look out at the water and tell the day what Walt would have told me. Paper over performance, boundaries over noise. The key taps once when I walk away, and it sounds like a life I am not leaving. Here's the heart of it. Dignity isn't a costume, and kindness needs a spine. Or, as Nora would say, I'm not upset you didn't know who I was. I'm upset by how you treated the woman you thought I was. When you feel small, remember the brass key. It didn't glitter. It opened doors. Your boundaries can do the same. Start by writing them where you'll see them. Daylight, email, no sign under pressure, guests first always. Use the 3C rule when someone pushes a quick decision. Calm, collect, confirm. Take 1 breath. Gather facts, screenshots, names, times, and confirm next steps in writing. Keep a simple family incident log: date, who, what, where, exact words, witnesses, what you did next. Patterns get honest on paper. And make consent a habit. No filming, sharing, or content of anyone without a clear yes. If you've been the one who crossed lines, you're still welcome here. Apologize without a but, repair what you can, and choose a better door tomorrow. This is not legal advice. Try these this week. Write a 3-line boundary card and tape it inside your cabinet. Start your first family incident log entry. 1 paragraph is enough. Before you sign anything, practice 3C, sleep on it, then reply by email. Tell one trusted person what boundary you're keeping and ask them to check in. Take a 10-minute phone-off walk and listen for what your life is asking you to protect. If this resonated, drop 1 sentence you'll tell yourself on a wobbly day and download the 1-page family incident log checklist in the description to get started. Subscribe if you want more stories where boundaries sound like brass keys and justice arrives quietly. Elegance equals respect. May you sleep tonight behind a door opened and guarded by your own choice.